The City of Duluth's 2021 Housing Indicator Report released this week has some rather eye-opening numbers. That report shows a 17% increase in the cost of owning a single-family home. And the average price of a rental in Duluth went up about $221 last year. Now, those high costs are making an already tight housing market a growing problem for the city. Joining us now with more is Theresa Bajda, a planner with the city's Planning and Economic Development Department and the author of the Housing Report. And Jeff Corey is the executive director of One Roof Community Housing. That's a nonprofit that provides housing services. Thank you both for being here tonight, Theresa and Jeff. Theresa, you, as I just mentioned, you wrote the Housing Indicator Report for the City of Duluth. Does it reveal any surprises?
Last year was a strange sort of blimp when we saw housing vacancy rates jump to 5%. But I think during the pandemic, we were seeing maybe a lot of college students moving home, folks moving in with friends or family. And so seeing it drop back down to 2% really trends with what we've been seeing out in the community, that it's very difficult to find housing, rental housing, and it's difficult across all income levels.
Jeff, you've worked in Duluth affordable housing for many years. As you look at the key takeaways on this report, what do you think people should really be paying attention to?
Well, I think stem to stern, there's challenges, right? So it's across all of the income levels and the housing types. So that speaks to crisis in some regard. And then I think on top of that, of course, when there are things that are very hard that happen in a community, the folks with the least are the ones who are hurt the most. And so, folks that are working paycheck to paycheck, super challenging to upgrade their housing or to find housing. And for folks that are holding on even, with less resources than that, so folks that are either precariously housed or homeless, there's just not much to hope for or to see that one could better their housing situation.
So Jeff, what is One Roof Housing doing then to help tackle the housing problem here?
We do a lot of things kind of across the spectrum of housing. So we are developing new units. We finished 42 units last year in the Decker Dwellings Project rental apartments. We've got 52 more planned to start this year. We do single family development, or community land trust homes. I think we helped about 20 families last year to purchase homes that way. We help with home renovations that make loans that banks aren't able to make so folks can fix up their homes. We prepare folks to be ready to buy a house with counseling, financial counseling and
Sure.
education. And then we also work with tenants and landlords to provide education and mediation and to help people stay housed.
Yeah.
So lots of things.
Mm-hmm. Theresa, how does the information that's compiled in this report help the city work with folks like Jeff and with other developers to kind of make the situation better in the housing arena?
Sure. I mean, the Housing Indicator Report definitely informs our decision making and understanding, what the true demand out there and what the market looks like. I think the city has really come together with federal, state, local partners to say, hey, how can we help close these gaps? It's really, really expensive to build in Duluth. And so finding opportunities like tax increment financing or, federal funds that just came to the city from the American Rescue Plan Act, providing $19.2 million for affordable housing projects to really get a lot more units online.
Theresa, the median income for those living in Duluth is $52,000. What's the average rent a person would pay in this city?
Average rent this year across all unit types. So we're taking, the average rent of Studios 1 and, putting it into an average. We're looking at about $1,320. That's a lot. That tells us that a great deal of our residents in Duluth are cost burdened. They're paying more than 30% of their income on housing, and that's a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Of course, COVID had an impact on everyone's pocketbook. Are there some bright spots coming out of it too, perhaps, so Jeff? I know that business has really changed. How people work has changed. And so a lot of companies no longer need the real estate maybe that they did before. Could there be some opportunities for affordable housing in maybe some of this commercial real estate that isn't being used right now?
There are definitely opportunities in that space, and it costs more than one might think to convert it.
Really?
So it isn't quite the slam dunk that you might think, but there's definitely several silver linings. The American Rescue Plan Act funds that Theresa mentioned, it's going to do a ton to spur new housing development, and absent COVID, that wouldn't have happened.
Is there a waiting list for subsidized housing in this city?
A long one.
A long
yeah.
one.
It takes several months for somebody to get either into public housing or to get a Section 8 voucher. And then if one is lucky enough to get a voucher, making it useful is a challenge because the fair market rents are so low, and that's the amount that you can use a voucher in. And so most rents are higher than that. So it's very challenging to use those resources now for poor folks.
Duluth has a very aging housing stock. Are a lot of those older homes in conditions that they can actually be fixed up for future housing, or do you see the need for a lot of kind of tear down and rebuild?
You know, I think our approach is always to say if the numbers work and we can rehab, certainly. And that's one of our approaches, and that of One Roof's, to rehab a lot of these units. But you know, when we run into situations when maybe they're condemned for human habitation, like what resources can we use to raise it and then do some thoughtful infill to maximize on that space? And sometimes instead of just putting a single family, maybe a single family with a attached or detached accessory dwelling unit to provide, you know, extra units.
And thank you both for enlightening us tonight. We have to go. Appreciate you being here. Theresa Bajda, the planner with the city's Economic Development Department, and Jeff Corey, Executive Director of One Roof Community Housing. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.